Welcome everyone to another episode of the Train Studio. I'm your host, Sean Morris. Admittingly, patrons, I almost forgot to make this video today, thinking I had another full day to get this month's video recap done. Luckily, I looked at the calendar and realized I better get this up today. So my apologies. That being said, you're going to get a video tomorrow because I was planning to show you some progression more progression for the tuft work that I'm going to do. So you'll get one today and you'll get one tomorrow. Forgive me if this comes up a little late on your feed. Like I said, you'll get one today and tomorrow. The reason I'm over on this side of the studio is one, because it's all cleaned up, but two, I wanted to say just a brief thank you to the folks that were able to come out and hang out during the live stream. This was, the area we were working in for the majority of the day. And if you're new here, you may have not seen this, but this is where I spent the most of the 10 hours working with you. By the way, subsequently, you guys probably don't know, but he did work for another 3 hours post live stream. So it was a very, very tiring day, but I'm really happy that we got through it. I still had all the giveaways to clean up. That is a Monday project as well. But a lot of the stuff is there and they're ready to go out in addition to all the others that helped us out with that. So again, thanks to all those sponsors and you guys if you were there hanging out. If you didn't see it, or if you're just consuming this later, or this is months down the road and you're wondering what I'm talking about, go check it out. It's a really cool video, something that I've done 3 years now running, which is pretty awesome, and something I look forward to. I'm not sure what next year's will look like, but we'll probably do some form of it, and let me know in the comments of this video here if you guys like the live build day. I know it was long, but we wanted to kind of have the longevity so that other people could check that out. So now let's come over to the other side of the studio. This is where some things are happening, and guys, this is just so fun to come down to at this point, to walk down each and every time to see this in studio, and it is not done. For 90% of the people out there, this is probably a good final stage for the project. It's not done for me here in studio. So I want to talk a little bit about that, really get in and give you guys the visuals that you probably didn't see in that video, and talk a little bit about what I'm working on tomorrow. Like I said, all laid out for tomorrow's video, but not necessarily for this particular update. So that will come, like I said, in tomorrow's video, but this was intended to be an update. I just thought I was going to get the update done tomorrow and then the next video then the day after, but here I am, accelerated a day ahead. That's what happens when you do 10 hours of live streaming. You get a little thrown off thinking, hey, 10 hours has got to be enough content for the patrons, not for you guys. Got to get some extra in there. So let's talk a little bit about the project, because it's advanced so far. So I'll pretend that you didn't watch the live stream so I can talk a little bit about that. So the evolution of the flocking process, you guys have seen that, but let me kind of give you an actual shot of this. So I'm going to move in. It'll kind of change a little bit with the lighting and the camera, but I just want to talk a little bit about the base layer. So you guys have seen the base layer, and I'm just going to go over here. I got the product. Why don't I just talk a little bit about that? One of the things that people sometimes are wondering about, how much flocking are you needing and looking for? Now, majority of you are probably buying these type shakers here. These ones here, they're a great product to buy. Obviously, I have a ton of them there. But this isn't going to be enough to do a whole table for you. So you're going to want to get a few of these if you're going to. I like to mix up extra for a variety of reasons. One, if I ever want to replicate something, I want to have a little on stock. I like to give the customers a little bit of a repair bag, if you will. But to do a table like this, and majority of this was flocked, so there's very few spaces that didn't get at least an initial layer or two of the same color. But in order to do that, this was filled nearly to the top, and I used just a shade over half of this container right here. Now, I double flock this plus highlighted with that. So that's not too bad. I felt that it went a long way, and that's a really big flocking job. So you're going to use that as in your bank of knowledge when you're estimating out your own product costs. You can probably get away with about 3 shakers. They're typically about 12 to 15 bucks. Canadian, around 15 to 17. So it's not too bad, about a $45 estimate, project estimate for flocking a table, and again, that's double flocking it. For me to do the highlighting of the project, I've had this shaker here for a while. I probably used 2 of those scoops to do the highlighting on a table. So very, very low level of highlight. And probably my absolute favorite color, a very underutilized color, I think, is the Earth Blend. So add this, guys, to your list. I'll throw a product a shot in the side, but this right here is my turf tone. I use this on road edges and anywhere where I want to create a little bit of a worn area. Specifically, I use that here in the party tree area just to kind of create these little bit of these worn paths. And I know it's a little hard to see, but those little worn areas, that specifically is what I want to do to put that down into an area here where I want to create a little bit of lived sort of lived walking and sort of high traffic areas, if you will. I also use it to skirt the road. And while it's subdued in the overall look, it really does help define the road edge and give it sort of a transitional gradient from this brown into the green. And as you move out, you don't really see that, but when you look at those edges, I'm hoping that you can kind of pick up that darkened edge. That's actually accentuated by that earth blend. So that's just a little bit about the flocking process. I talked about it. It was about a 70-30 mix of weld bond to glue to get down the first layer, a 50-50 mix for the second layer. I leave about a week between them just to really make sure it solidifies. It lets me go back and patch fill. It also increases the surface area for the next layer to contact, and that's super important when you're flocking. And then leave that to dry about another 2-3 days. And then how I do the highlighting is what I do is I go in with the scenic cement. I think you guys have seen that before. It's a great product. It's right here, there. And I airbrush the area that I'm working on. And when I flocked individual tiles because it was really easy to get green down, and the green was going to match no matter what. When I'm doing the blends and the highlighting, I did the table all together, so I didn't move parts away. So when I'm doing this area right here, I'm airbrushing the whole thing and laying in the highlights so that you can get that color splash transitional gradient. If you did it individually, you're going to get too much pocking or kind of a sort of circular applications of highlights, because you're going to have the natural defined edge and no ability to necessarily find that gradient. So when I was doing it, I saturate the area, not a heavy saturation, with the airbrush. You turn the airbrush pressure up a little bit because you do want to have a nice blast that does penetrate your flocking. You let that soak. You do 2 layers of that, and then you come in, and for me it was earth blend first, followed by highlight, then followed by base color. I use the base color to then tone down any area where I think I hit it a little bit too heavy, or I wanted to have a feathering out. So I might leave a hot spot here and then feather that out. And I feather that out one way by using the highlight, and then secondarily I come in with the base color and then re-feather that out as well. That's really, really important to get those gradients. So when people are looking at this in the comment, they're saying, oh, I love the variation in that. It's actually more in the application technique as much as it is just the colors that you put down themselves. And then when that is done, I turn the airbrush air pressure way down, and then I come over and I re-blast the area with the scenic cement so that I'm both sealed from the bottom and the top. It's very obvious, but I'll say it. You turn the air pressure way down because you do not want to blow out your flocking that you've just lightly dusted. It's not adhered to too much. It's just still sitting on the surface. So you use that air pressure and that scenic cement to blow a little bit of down pressure plus a sealant. But you don't want to have too much that you're blowing out all over, because you lose that transitional gradient that you just put in. My apologies if this video ends up around the 20-minute mark. I do want to share and make sure you guys don't miss anything in terms of bringing you up to speed. Following that, the next thing after the flocking was posts on the internet, followed by comments that said, and I'm just going to let you guys enjoy this joke as much as I did, where people said, the table looks a little plain. Remove all trees, remove all shrubbery. Yes, it does. The photo of me showing the before and after shot of the flocking was just that, showing what it looks like as a transitional gradient from base color to variation. But people always interpret everything as a final product, even though I say work in progress continuously. Patrons, you're on the inside. You guys know there's no way that table was finished. So next up for me was obviously, and I talked a little bit, I won't talk about the trees so much. I did definitely do a full, basically how-to tutorial on the tree. It's in, I think, around the 1.5 to 2.5 hour mark of the video. But if you guys had further questions about the trees, please ask me. And I'll talk more about that if you wish. But if you want to just go check it out, it's right in the video. It's already done for you. It was a how-to right within the live stream. But next up, what I did, and I did this work on live stream, or a large portion of it, and 3 hours following, was coming in and laying in the hedgerows. Now, the hedgerows were always in the design, and really they are used for a couple things. One, we wanted to make sure that we accentuated the roads even more to create that transitional element between the flats and various other locations. This one here was very important because we wanted to have a way of defining party tree, and we didn't want to create a big cavern because we did want to have some flow down through here. So what we did is we put in this, I had this idea of putting in this hedgerow that captured this curve and then came down through here. I don't think I have the map handy, but I'll try to remember to share that. And there's just this like cartoonish map, and I really saw this kind of like S curve, and I was like, you know what, I can incorporate that in. And we wanted the road to continue past, but the hedgerow to sort of jut off and create this sort of lived space here. It's one of my favorite hobbit holes, by the way. So that was a lot of time, and doing that very is tedious and long process. Took about 7 hours, I think, total time to get all of those done in. Over the course of finishing up after the video and laying them in pre-video. That was really, really important because for me, it actually sort of set the striations of the rolling hills. So the rolling hills set the topography, but the hedgerows really started defining the spaces on there. So past that, the next thing that I did the following day, Jace, we worked for about maybe 4.5 hours on Saturday. And what he did one thing and one thing only in that time. And he came in and laid all of these tiny tufts. So if you can see all those dots of that light green color, and they look like, I have them handy here, or did have them handy. Oh, they're right over here. Nope, that's not it. That's the wrong color. I'll grab another color. Not the color he used, but this is what he used. So there were 6 sheets of this, and he came in and he laid these down individually. So there's a lot of work in that, and for most of you, it's likely not something that you have to do, but I will tell you, much like laying that earth blend in, that very few people are going to know about because they just aren't going to identify it. These tiny tufts, in addition, I have to do these next. They are really going to help set the overall final look of this. If you come down to this pathway right here, they're a little standoffish right now because there's not really a complement there, but that alone for me just really defines this pathway from being just a pathway in grass to being part of the landscape. And this dotted throughout the landscape, how many ever hundreds this is, to us is really starting to set the vegetative tone that we were looking for, and really starting to to complement what we wanted to have through here. This could have relatively remained untouched, but even just these little sprigs of color followed by these sprigs of color are really going to help set that. So while he was doing that, because that is again tying in, this color in particular really accented, we felt the highlight color, and really important to sort of bring that dotted splash out here. You notice that we have sort of dots here and there with the highlight color amongst the green. This is doing the same thing on a slightly larger scale. These ones going down are going to do the same thing, but they're going to actually bring some deep shadow tones in. And they're actually going to sit complementary to a lot of these green ones. So you'll get sort of the balance, the light and dark together, just to create a little bit of a tone. Probably less so these than the initial green. However, we do have a fairly significant allocation of these. These are actually supposed to be belonging in those piles, which I'll talk about in a second. So while he was doing that, what I then did was I stepped out and I went back to the clump foliage that I was working on, and then I started laying in what we kind of refer to as the tails or the snakes, where you take the hedgerows and you start incorporating them into the rest of the landscape. The reason we don't do that initially is because we really need to see it in this form. It's a little bit different doing a hedgerow as a standalone tile, and you saw that in the live video, but it doesn't give you the necessarily the gradient that you need when you have all the tiles together. So when I was doing that, I had to go by. First, what I did is I did individually pull off everything, and my focus there was to go into the hobbit holes themselves. And so in the hobbit holes, and I know it's a little harsh with this light coming in here, but in the hobbit holes themselves, I laid in all of the foliage. So I laid in the foliage, I'll go a bit higher here, to bring in the look of this, but in a much smaller scale, wrapping around some of the holes and really working that foliage in to encapsulate and enclose in these homes. So again, bringing this down and bringing this down to tail through. So a very much similar look to the hedgerows, but bringing it in to where the hobbit holes themselves are. So this was a hedgerow here, but I wanted to bring a little bit down through here. No hedgerow over here, but you don't want to have this without any clump foliage. Without any clump foliage, this just doesn't look the part. So again, same thing up through here. So that's what I spent my time doing. So it was kind of our Saturday, fairly light approach to that. Same thing down through here, bringing some of the clump foliage in. Now, if you move up to bag end a little bit, you're going to notice that I crept this over. That was initially planned, and then along the front. But you can see the difference. This has nothing done yet, and it will. But just to cap this off, we actually want to leave a lot of this as a flat. Same thing going up this slope over here. When you don't have that clump foliage going up, it does look entirely different. These hills right here, while they're nicely defined as rolling hills, just a touch, just a little bit of a sprinkle and incorporation of the clump foliage does really bring it to life. And I think if you guys could see an image without the clump foliage versus the clump foliage, and that's that before and after photo, that was really missed by people, and they didn't really understand and grasp the concept of how important and what was to come. But now with it, I don't think you can envision a world where you think that this doesn't look better with that. I don't want to put thoughts in your head, but I think it definitely accentuates quite nicely. So again, bringing this up here, we're just going to have some continuity coming up here, a little on the end cap, and bringing it down. This space right here had no hedgerow at all, but again, this large flat space really screamed to have a little bit of the bushes brought in. So to a smaller extent, we wanted to kind of bring these in and around the well area. And I think that really sets off that area very nicely by bringing in, again, the elements that we already had tied to the rest of the table. Didn't spend a long time on it, but I went in and flushed out the pumpkins a bit more. We used this vine, this vegetation vine in here. Remember, there was a two-part sort of transitional gradient that we created within this crop row here. That's all now blended out. It's a non-factor. And we do have the pumpkins cascading. We did kind of two little wheat crops here. They're slightly different, just to give a little bit of variation, and obviously the orientation, which was designed, already helps set that off so that it doesn't look too uniform in shape. And I really do like that hotspot color in the middle. And I think now that you step away, that becomes a non-intrusive focal point. Fairly easy to do, but really nice. And this house continues to offset this whole corner, which is nice. A lot of trees still to come in here, so this will be bulked out quite nicely. When you're looking at that now, it looks great with the trees. Just keep in mind that you're only seeing 3 over there, 2 over there, and 2 there. So you're only seeing 7 trees. There's still 1, 2. There's a second complementary one to go there. three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine more trees to be defined within this space. And so that's really going to bring the height of the table up and be a really, really fantastic look. So that's effectively where we have gotten. The next stage, which I'm going to talk about, so give me a few more minutes if you will bear with me, is actually going in and starting to lay out color splashes in the house. We do have some of the flower boxes already done, but I wanted to do a little bit of a test fit, and that right there is some of the Green Stuff World bushes. And I just wanted to kind of experiment with how they can kind of go together. It's a new product I haven't used. And so I figured out a way to sort of like create some bunches and using some hot glue to create some backings for them because they're a little bit of a branch material that you have to cut. But my next task following putting the tiny tufts down is I'm actually going to work my way from big elements to small elements as I move through the table. And we have them kind of defined in two different spaces. So this is the material I was talking about just a second ago. So it's in this branch-like form. I actually cut it in half and then created a little bush from that. So that's what I'll be doing. And I just kind of used a glue backing to make that into to a little bit of a bush. But this is the color splash palette that we have to work with. So various forms of red, yellows, whites, and reds, obviously, and some off-toned reds, which I think are really going to really bring that green out from the table. There's some box hedges. I'm not sure that we're going to end up using them. They look like this. They're a really cool product. I'm just not sure if I'm going to have use for them or not. But they're this foam material, and you can actually put some cool bends and shapes in these that they will hold. So if I pinch that over a little bit more, it will actually hold that shape, and you can get sort of corners on your box edges, which is kind of cool. So that's still to come. All Gamers Grass primarily, some Hecky, some Green Stuff World products in there as well. And then over here, we alluded to this kind of in the video, but this is the palette. I'll just lay this out really quickly since we're, full transparency. You guys are getting the whole, shindig here. These are the palette swatches that we have per section. Now, we've discussed here in studio, we're not 100% sure how much this darkened palette will work. I should open that up. There's another one. This darkened palette here may or may not be used across many of the tiles. This particular swatch here likely will. I do want to have some of these are more olive tone greens versus this being more of a rich reddish green actually. But we did have those, and we wanted to kind of lay them out in terms of we possibly might use those. You'll also notice too between these piles that this is distinctly missing. This particular, I think these are like 12 mil tufts. These are actually going to be used around the pond area. So how we have this laid out is that this color swatch right here is actually allocated for these two tiles here. So obviously the pond is in here, and hence why we have those tall, they're actually jungle tufts, 12 mil jungle tufts from Gamers Grass. But one of the things that, and this is obviously for many people, this might be a whole project, and then for us, that's the project as well as that. But what we do this for is this is specifically an inherently balanced out, so that when we get doing something on the table and you set an effect, you can establish that effect with relative consistency across your project. You're not going to start on one and you realize, oh, I just used I used all of these on one tile and I really wanted to have this continuity throughout, and I only have this left for the other 15. So what we do is we lay these out in terms of a ration for us. We don't typically, if we underutilize, that's great. You put them into the surplus. If you overutilize, you might tag into one of the surrounding piles, but you start to have that cognizant feel that, okay, I may have to look at toning back that, or how am I using that? There's going to be other natural ways for us to sort of save on materials in a particular tile. While we may use lots of those tall tufts here, we need none of those elsewhere. And Well, we have this large section that's effectively, let's say, a quarter of the portion that we're going to be working on. We know that we're going to save likely some material there. We get down in the party tree area, we know that this area right here is probably not going to have a significant number of tufts just randomly scattered throughout here, but more on the perimeter. That's a lot of real estate to save. You're going to save some down here. So what we do is we evenly allocate out to the best of our ability, but know that you're going to have some pluses and minuses in there. And I will tell you right now, there's nothing worse than running out of anything mid-project. I've talked about this before. This is one of the things, rationing out, whether it's this, flocking, or other materials, it's a really good idea to give yourself some mindset as to how much you can dedicate to any one given space. And it doesn't have to be this robust. It can be even if it's just these two. The same premise applies as you work across your palette. So you'll see some variation amongst the pile in terms of what might or might not get used, across the balance of this. This, for example, isn't existing in all of these piles. So we've sort of identified what areas might need to have some plant material. This one right here, for example, while similar to this, isn't existing in this. So there is areas where you can have some highlighting. It's not intended to be a uniform application, but there is some thought in terms of how that planning goes about. And the last thing that I'll cover off in here, because I've already long-winded and over, is our laser cut plant allocation. So these are all laid out. Jace has painstakingly went through, assembled all these. You guys have seen them. They're great, by the way. That variation, that variegation that comes in there, that's how they come. You glue them together and you have that variety. You can't beat it in terms of the quality in the painting, like the pre-coloration of them. That's just fantastic. You're not going to get that anywhere else. There's some really cool, purple variegated leaves in here as well. Really, really awesome stuff. Cannot wait to put these down. My approach will be this. I will work with the tufts first, saving the plants and the color splashes to go in last, because this is still going to be designed and utilized as a gaming table first and foremost. We want to tuck up those elements within the confines of the homes. That's really where we're going to be. We're probably not going to be doing big color splashes outside of that. We want to draw attention to the lived, groomed, and maintained areas of the table. The balance of the greens, the things that can be kind of crushed, if you will, during gameplay, they're going to be the pieces that are used elsewhere. But again, we're not going to be, populating large flat areas with them. They're gonna kick off features. That's why in our initial design, that's why you're gonna see throughout the table some sort of like one-off elements that we've purposely designed to be sort of like magnets for other features. Chimneys, for example, lookout benches, fences that have run off into other areas. Obviously in and around these sort of standoff crop rows, tree bases, little wood features. Those are all great candidates to have those tufts sort of magnetize around that. Another chimney element, maybe a little bit up here on the hill under the tree, because that's typically not going to be overutilized. Alongside existing fences, walkways, things like that are really great candidates to have those tufts. And then you can leave your flats and obviously maintain your roads and things like that. So there's a rhyme and a reason to everything. And I think that's, if you're really truthfully interested, that's the kind of stuff that you get on the back end of these videos that, that don't get captured in photographs, etc. So that's going to be, the focus for the next video is going to be effectively an elaboration of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break that down in terms of the next video. I'll make it a bunch of shorts. And as I'm putting down sort of, maybe not every single color variety, but as I'm putting down at least the different elements, like these, for example, versus tiny tufts versus bushes versus standardized tufts versus color, I'll break that down and give you just an example of here's a good place that I would think you would utilize this element. Here's a good place to use this variety of plants, and the color is really irrelevant at that point. These are another one. These are called the spiky tufts, the wild tufts, if you will, wild shape. They're really, really cool. These are taller and can be crushed quite easily. They look really great, but they're not going to be something that you're going to want to have in a high traffic area. In fact, you're probably going to want to put these into a tucked in element and then use some sort of other, more standardized tuft to create a gradient out from that. So this one, maybe has this or this as an accent color coming out of that, just to get some transitional gradients going there. I noticed that Jace has set aside some of these. These go kind of the back row, front row, and so he has this in the front row. Why? Well, as explained before, we have a water feature right here, so we want to bring that back in. So, like I said, that planning is part of the process. Really important for us to make a quality project. We're hoping that you guys think this is of a quality that you would expect from the studio, and kind of what we kind of achieve, and through our techniques, and obviously sharing with you guys. We're hoping that you guys will pull away some of this stuff, and whether you're replicating a SHIRE or your own project, knowing how to maybe flock a different way, how to prep a tree a different way, how to utilize clump foliage in a variety of ways and different ways to do it, and how it's really important to sort of pre-plan and have that notion of how you're going to use materials before they ever go on your tabletop. So there you have it, guys. A very lengthy video. I've been all about lengthy videos in the content as of late, but again, there's a lot happening right now, and I did warn you guys months and months ago as I was giving these updates that there will be a lot to share for this project as it evolves. And like I said, it's 90% there, but we're not done. So I hope you guys are going to stay with us, and see you guys in the new year. Have a happy new year, everyone. Safe holidays, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, which will be tomorrow, but literally that will be next year. Have a good one, guys. Cheers.